The mines of Moria, known to the Dwarfs as the Kingdom of Khazad-dûm, is in danger. Whilst the Dwarfs round Middle-earth are celebrating Durin's Day.
In there's a merry old man beneath an old grey hill, and there they brew a beer so brown the man in the moon himself came down one night to drink his fill.
The Pale Orc, named Azog, and his son Bolg are preparing an attack on the underground Kingdom of the Dwarfs. The mighty orcs from Gundabad mustered their warriors, ready to march to war, to destruction, an army of great evil with one single purpose, to end Durin's line. To slaughter all of Dwarven kin and take over what is theirs. Meanwhile, King Thror, King Durin and King Dain Ironfood gathered their kin to march towards their ancient realm beneath the misty mountains. With all their might, they made the journey towards Moria to defend their kingdom, their home, from the approaching orcs. Two armies marching towards their doom. Two armies on the brink of war. This is the battle for Moria. King Thror, Durin, Dain and their kin reached the mines first and were able to set up their defenses inside. Sturdy as we know the dwarfs, they stood strong waiting on the inevitable. The invading hordes of orcs. Azog and Bolg's plan was to overwhelm the dwarfs and break through the lines of defense. The orcs were victorious, but the dwarfs were not beaten fully yet and immediately planned the pushback to reclaim the mine. So this time the orcs set up defense in Moria, waiting for Durin's folk to attack. The breakthrough of the dwarfs was successful, and they were able to reclaim their position in the mines. But there was a new threat. Azog and his orcs wanted to take over the king's hall, located in the center of the mines, and so both armies rushed to there in order to take control. Azog, Bolg and the Gundabad orcs seemed to be too overwhelming for the dwarven armies. The orcs took control over the hall. But as is common in the spirit of dwarves, they did not give up and tried again to push towards them. Hall, that is so important to their kin, and gave their all to reclaim it. The push of the dwarves was futile and did not end up in victory, but they were not defeated yet. In order to beat Azog, the dwarves went for a more direct approach and wanted to confront the orcs head-on. In an all-decisive battle, But the orcs of Azog ended up being too strong to handle head-on for now. They had a numerical advantage over the dwarfs, and had a blind hatred for the kin of Duel. So, after the head-on battle, the orcs wanted to truly end the bloodline of Duel, and went on to kill the kings and princes of dwarfs. Yet again the orcs triumphed, and it all ended up in an epic showcase of the strongest warriors fighting each other head on the determined victory over the mines. Azog versus Dain Ironfoot II. Bolg versus Kili. Azog versus Thror. After Azog mercilessly slaughtered the king, the dwarfs went into a frenzy and rallied for their fallen champions, and put an end to Azog the Defiler and his orcs for once and for all. Azog fell wounded. Without his leadership, the orcs turned into chaos and could not overcome the wrath of the dwarfs. The orcs were beaten. After being dominated by Azog and his army for most of the battles, the sturdy dwarfs overcame their foe in the end, so the mines were saved. But Azog was not fully beaten and planned another to end Durin's bloodline. Thank you for watching. Thanks for everyone that participated in the event. Thanks Owe and Bikershad for live streaming as well. Thanks Chinchilla, Selza, Pure for all the recordings. The next RPPVP event will be the Battle for Helm's Deep.